Okay. And so this is a conversation about using teens as Hebrew through movement teachers, and everybody on this call, their congregation has experience doing that. And it seemed to make sense to have this group get together and share what you've done, how it's worked, and so on. I'm going to suggest that, since you don't know each other, that everybody start, and we'll just do, I'll call names out because I can see you in my order. Just introduce yourself, where you're from, congregation, and the city, and then just a number. How many teens have you used in this capacity? And then we'll go around and let people tell the stories, and then we'll open up conversation. So that's kind of my unscripted, scripted plan for this. So Sarah, I'm going to start with you actually.
I'm Sarah Moody. I'm at Temple Israel of Westport, Connecticut, and we have had one teen doing Hebrew through movement.
And Sarah is new in her position, yes?
Yes,
and,
I started weeks ago.
So catching up, but Lana Nemetov-Bressler could not be with us, and Sarah said she'd come. So we have Sarah providing the information from there. Roberta?
So Roberta Goodman, Education Director at North Shore Congregation Israel, Glencoe, Illinois, North Suburban Chicago. We've actually had 3 teens who've done this, and we have plans for more, and we have a grant next from our Federation Education Department to implement a new aspect of our teen HTM program.
Okay, thank you. Penina?
Hi, I'm Penina Alexander. I'm at B'nai Israel Congregation in Rockville, Maryland. And I am now the director, and I was assistant director. I'm trying to think how many teens we've had. We have, I think 9, trained
Wow.
9 teens. Mm-hmm.
As teachers.
Yes.
Okay, so far you're winning. Stephanie?
I'm Stephanie Carlson. I am in Houston at Congregation Emmanuel. And we've had at least one for the last 5 years, but this past year is when we changed our system, and we had a team of 6.
You almost had the winning number. Erin.
I'm Erin Levine, she, her, hers pronouns. I work at Congregation Or Shalom in Vernon Hills, which is northwest suburban Chicago. And as of right now, we have had 2 teens. Hopefully we'll have more in the future, but we're not there yet.
Okay, great. Thank you all. Thank you all for being here and having this conversation together. My suggestion is that, going one at a time, to let you explain what you've done to train your teens and support them. And also to talk a little bit about, just reflect a little bit. We'll have time for questions that will allow for more of that. Just to reflect a little bit about what you might do differently in the future. And we'll stop for any clarifying questions after each person. And then after everybody has gone, we'll open up the conversation. Okay, so I'm going to start with Penina, because you may have to go soon. And so if you could share with us, that'd be great.
Okay, thank you. So we've had HTM in our school for, I think, 4 years, and I don't know, approximately. And we've only had it with teens, and we basically, I scheduled several sessions with them, and we did the training program together, as a group. I mean, I think they did their assignments, I think either individually or in pairs. And I started with a group of 4 teens. It just seemed like, I think we wanted there to have this energy. So we chose teens that some of them had better Hebrew than others, and some were more of camp counselor type teens with a lot of energy. We had two male, 2 female, and we we had them, and then I think they graduated from high school. So then we needed to start with a new group of teens, and we basically did the same thing. And they taught on Sundays, like kindergarten, first and second, and maybe even third, for 15 or 20-minute sessions. And they would, I basically paid them for like a whole morning. And there was, at that time when we started the first couple of years, we had on our staff a Hebrew specialist who he did a number of things in the school, but like he also supervised these teens. So like he could go and observe them in different, he would observe them in different iterations, different shifts, different days. And then they would do a lot of reflection. And this was very successful, I think, in the first couple of years, being able to, come together at the end of each day and then, reflect, talk about, what was challenging and what they, what went well. And then they would plan their lessons for the next week. So they didn't have to do anything outside of the school day. And that was great. Then in COVID, they actually taught, we had two girls, two teens who taught on Zoom, who continued with us, we had trained like the previous year. They continued with us. They graduated high school. So we had to bring in a new group of teens. We trained them, but this past year, among the number of challenges that we had in running school in this sort of mid-COVID situation, we were in person, but I didn't have the Hebrew specialist to observe. So I kind of took that on myself, and I tried to supervise them, and we would, but it wasn't the same because I wasn't like a dedicated, I wasn't like dedicated to supervising them, but I think they really needed it. And they needed somebody to, I think, help them with the actual like mechanics even. Some of it's behavior stuff, and some of it is just like, you need more energy, or, like something isn't right. So I felt like that was a challenge that I really had this year, was being able to supervise them and help them grow and improve and do their own reflections. And so I'm actually trying something different this year that I'm hoping will help. I am going to train a teen, but she's not exactly, she's not a high school teen. She's like a first year college student, and she's going to be like my primary Hebrew through movement teacher. And I'm going to maybe have another teen, maybe a high school madrich or madricha assist her. And I'm hoping that like, if she's sort of like, I'm the teacher, I'm just hoping that like, I might be able to supervise her in a little bit easier way than maybe some of the younger teens. I'm not sure, but it seemed like a good idea at the time. So that's where I am.
Thank you. Clarifying questions?
Yeah, so the college student that you're hiring has, I think you said she taught HTM before?
So she has not formally, so I'm going to have to go through the training process with her, but she knows, she's a day school graduate. So this was also another thing, I didn't really talk about this before, but like some of our students have been day school graduates, some have not been. And so there was kind of a mix of Hebrew knowledge and ability. So her Hebrew is really good. And she assisted a teacher in a COVID classroom who did a version of Hebrew through movement, maybe not the official, but a Hebrew through movement type activity that she would help lead. So it's like she had an audition without knowing it. And that's why one of the reasons we chose her.
I had a question. When you did the training with the teens and they were together, when did you do that? Like what, evening, daytime, what did you do?
Well, the first couple of times we did it, I planned it like it was like the end of August, when everyone was back from camp, like a few late afternoon evenings, like it would be like 4 to 6 or 4 to 7. We'd have dinner or something. And we would do it like on a project. We had a projector and we watched the videos and we did all the things. So we did it like, we tried to, so I did it like that, like during the week. And then this last year, I wasn't able to manage that. So we did it during, like, when school started. We did it on a Sunday morning. And I kind of like, I probably supervised them for like half of it, and half of the time they did it on their own, and I just checked in with them.
Okay, thank you.
Question. So you said like you would have like groups graduate and then you would need to get new teens. Did you ever have any overlap between them and like have a little bit of like mentorship or guidance from like the more experienced teens with the new teens, or did you just kind of keep them in those cohorts?
Yeah, yes, that was something we thought about too. So sometimes so the girls that we had in COVID were girls that had been with us the previous year, and didn't graduate. So they were with a group of these two guys, like it was like, and the boys graduated and the girls stayed on. So they had like multiple years in Hebrew through movement, which was ideal, because it is hard starting over every time. Just this year, not only was it difficult, I think, choosing the right teens, they also were seniors. But one of the guys had like, we had sort of brought him along. Like, he didn't go through the formal training until this past year, but he had sort of been like a madriach assisting. So a little bit of both.
Thank you. I'm going to move us on. Let's go with Stephanie.
Sure. Hi. So we started Hebrew through movement here when I started here, which was 5 years ago. And then, and we did it for a few years with a teacher and a teen TA. So there was, one teacher and they had a teen TA sort of as an assistant. But then this year, and then over COVID, the year that we were online, we started moving more to including more of the other pieces of Onward Hebrew. So we created this Rega Be'ivrit, this moment of Hebrew thing that happened during our online tefillah, our online all group time, that introduced a letter of the week and that brought in some fun things with words, and then there was a portion of that was Hebrew through movement, and that was led by two teen madrichot who were supervised by the teacher who was sort of in charge of that piece, and that worked really well. The teens were excited about it. The teacher was excited about it. The kids responded really well to the teens, and we thought, okay, well, so now that we're back in the building and we really want to sort of go all in, to use Nahama's phrasing, right? Like on the Hebrew through movement, how do we do more of that? And it was an answer to two different questions. It was an answer to how do we do more Hebrew through movement, and also what do we do with 57 teens who want to be TAs? And so we decided that what we did was that instead of the one Hebrew through movement teacher trying to go to all of the classrooms, we changed that position to be more of a supervisory position. And so the Hebrew through movement teacher, who is she's a native Hebrew speaker and did the training. So she supervises this team of 6 madrichim who go in pairs of 2 or teams of 3 into the classrooms. So they do the training is sort of 2 parts. So there's the beginning training that they do at the beginning of the year, where they where they sort of get the foundation in Hebrew through movement and in what they're going to be doing and how that's going to work. And then there's ongoing training. So built in as part of their day, they do the during the tefillah for the younger kids, they do the introduction of the letter of the week and the words of the week and the skits and the shtick, right? They do that during tefillah, and then they have some team time where they're working on what they're going to be doing in the classrooms that day. And then they go and do in the classrooms, and then they have some wrap up time at the end of the day. So, so it really is, it is a learning experience for those teens, as well as then them being empowered to go out into the classrooms. In terms of like the Hebrew levels of the kids, it's a little bit varied, but we chose teens for that role based on Hebrew experience and the sort of we were looking for teens with a real outgoing, dynamic sort of personality who were gonna really thrive in that upbeat, high energy kind of learning environment. And we did that that was new last year, and it worked great. So the things that we're working on this year is to do a little bit more, a little bit deeper, a little bit longer front end training, right? So that they have more than just the one the one sort of back to school. We have a day before school where it's like our teacher in service day, right? And so they spent that day together last year, but we're looking for opportunities to do more with that for next year, and to do more so that there could be not just the Hebrew through movement review piece or learning piece, but also a sort of Hebrew, and so that we can make sure that there's consistency across the group in terms of their Hebrew knowledge.
Thank you. Any clarifying questions?
So all this occurs during your regular hours on Sunday, is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they're not so much like what Penina said. We're not expecting that they're doing any lesson planning or any preparation outside of their regular religious.
And they write their scripts together, or?
Yeah.
Okay. And is the person that you hired able to watch them in the classroom, or are they doing something else too?
No, so she's floating between the different groups in the classrooms.
Okay, so she's not doing any teaching herself?
She's not, correct. She may do some teaching, she may jump in and do some demonstration if she finds that something's wobbly or not the way she wanted to see it. But we deliberately left her schedule so that her role is supervisory.
Yeah, great.
Oh, she does Hebrew through movement with our full-time preschool during the week. So she is teaching Hebrew through movement, but not on Sunday mornings.
Right, now we're there observing her.
Right.
How often do they do HTM in preschool?
They have it, so she works with each group. Last year she worked with each group once a week. Okay. I think but last year she had, last year was the first year we had done it. And last year she had, she had a regular teaching. So she taught in a classroom from 9 to 2:30 or 9 to 12:30. And then when her classroom of younger kids was dismissed at 12:30, then from 12:30 to 2:30, she was doing the Hebrew with the older kids. Okay. But this year she does not have a classroom. So we're going to take it all the way down to the younger kids.
All right, thank you. Let's move on. Sarah, are you able to tell us about your place?
Sure, I'll do my best. Like I said, I started 2 weeks ago, so I'm still getting the lay of the land, but we've been doing Hebrew through movement for a few years. We started it with a rabbi who was a community rabbi who was teaching for us, who was teaching Hebrew through movement. But last year we had a teen teaching for us, which the kids really loved and responded really well to. He pretty much stuck directly to the Hebrew through movement curriculum and didn't really sway from it. That was kind of his comfort zone, and we kind of let him run with that. He is an Israeli teen, so it worked really well for him to do it because obviously he's fluent in Hebrew. So it was a little bit easier for him to kind of dive right in. The part we didn't get to last year was kind of introducing letters, which we're hoping to get to that part this year. Unfortunately, we only have one teacher this year for 1 day a week, and we run 3 different days and different sessions. So we're trying to figure out whether we'll have another teen that is interested in doing it, or how we're going to manage that. We would love for it to be a teen, but we obviously want it to be the right person. So we're trying to figure that out still. I would say one of the challenges has been that Rabbi NB didn't really have the time to supervise Orion all of the time. Now that there are 2 of us and she has me to help run the school, we're hopeful that we'll be able to give more supervision to the Hebrew through movement person or people, and make sure that we really know what's happening in the classroom all the time. So, you know, that is just growing pains of a shifting staff team. So we feel really positive about the direction we're going. We feel really positive about what Hebrew through movement has done in the school. And we're just trying to figure out ways to keep learning and growing. I'm happy to try and answer questions, but the truth is that's basically all I know.
I have some things to throw in, never mind the question.
Okay, perfect.
First of all, that Orion stuck to the script makes me very happy. That's what, like that, it was developed in a way that we know this works. And when people go off script, not necessarily so. So I just want to say that's a good thing. And also what's interesting, I happen to know Orion, who participated in the national community of practice that we had for Hebrew through movement teachers that met once a month. So there was other supports that were going on constantly that helped him get the sense of what was really behind Hebrew through movement and so on. And just to the side, I'll say to his credit, nobody else knew he was a teenager. The way he handled himself was amazing. And it was the last night, which actually we were doing something and I mentioned to everybody and they were shocked because the maturity that came through was unbelievable. And one of the things that I asked Alana to do was to make sure when he went away to college that there was a Reconstructionist place. It seemed like it could use a Hebrew through movement teacher. Like it wasn't doing Hebrew through movement. And she connected out and Orion connected back to me, and sophomore year will be the consideration for teaching. But the idea of these teens going on and sharing their knowledge elsewhere is also part of that. So I'll just throw those couple things in.
Great, thank you.
Do you think there'll be a community of practice again this year?
We're planning on it. Yeah, the plan at the moment is that we may do one in September and then we've got the holidays there in the middle, we'll play that out. But yes, there probably will be. Any clarifying questions that maybe Sarah could answer otherwise?
You know,
All right. Oh, go ahead, Mary.
Do you know if this was something like your team sought out, or if Alana just kind of like saw him and was like, hey, would you be willing to do this? Do you know how the connecting him to Hebrew through movement happened at all?
His mom is our administrator. So that's how it happened.
Good thinking. Okay. Nina, good seeing you. Thanks for coming. Roberta.
Two things to start with. One is we've been doing Hebrew through movement here for how many years now? years at least. Maybe more. And we also have a large teen program. Last year we had 79 teens, 7th through 12th grade. And the reason I'm talking about this is that we have opportunities for teens, and we're even building on this more, to take on additional responsibility within the school. So for example, we have song leaders who are teenagers, and they get paid at a higher rate than our other teens, unless, except for those who have a higher responsibility, but not necessarily song leading. So we have teen tutors, and we're building now teens who can who have expertise in learning differences, and Hebrew through movement is another one of them. There are a couple other examples. So it's again that idea that one size doesn't fit all, and how can we give opportunities for our teens? I mean, it sort of goes to Aaron's question, you know, how did you find them? Why did, or, you know, why did you knew he had this area of expertise, why did you tap into him? So we had, one of the things that we did with Hebrew through movement was we also had an even more expansive program at one time with total physical response, giving students the choice of doing sort of the more conventional Hebrew track focusing on prayer, or doing more that focused on modern Hebrew, but in that immersive way of hearing, of listening, understanding, and then speaking, although we never really got to the speaking. But so some of our students have had 5-6 years of exposure of that. Now that track is disappearing, so that may not help us in the future. So this last year, we had one student who had been in that Hebrew, in that Hebrew Plus track that we called, and had a lot of exposure to TPR with, we have one teacher who is very, is an expert in this area. He's an Israeli. And this student, this teacher aide, also took Hebrew in his middle school. We have 5 high schools in the area that offer Hebrew and 1 middle school, and he was at the 1 middle school. So he had a lot of Hebrew background, and his mother's one of our rabbis. And so I hired him to be a Hebrew specialist, Hebrew through movement specialist. And he took he watched the videos, did the assignments. I don't think he completed the program, but he did go pretty far. And he had seen Hebrew HTM taught many times, so it wasn't new to him. He was a 9th grader. So we had a new student who was a 7th grader, who I think comes from, if not a bilingual home, a home where there's a lot of language. And he may even go to the Greek school that's here in the area. So language was something. And so he followed around the 9th grader, the 7th grader followed around the 9th grader, and sort of being mentored that way. And then we had another teacher, another teen who took over for a teacher on maternity leave. And one of the things she did was she taught Hebrew through movement. So I think part of it is HTM is in the culture, and our teens have been exposed to it. And what I'm most excited about is that we received this grant from the Federation's Education Department. And part of the grant is in order for my Israeli expert TPR person to work with more students, more of our teen aides, more of our madrichim, on becoming HTM specialists. And I already have one who's interested, who is, he works in the preschool class. And up until now, no preschoolers have had HTM, and he didn't want to leave preschool to do just HTM. So this is going to be great because he'll be able to do both things. And I think there are a couple others that we will tap. What I'm not sure about is exactly how we will do it, whether it will be a class in person or a class online, or if it will be alone or Hebrew, the TPR specialist checking in with the students. I mean, we're going to have to see. Because alone teaches all 3 hours that we have school, and we can't do what some of you have talked about, of having somebody who's actually there on the ground, who's able to supervise them as they're working it through. But I'm really excited.
Thank you. Clarifying questions.
Roberta, knowing you're a data person, have you ever collected like any data on your HTM program in terms of like, I don't know, like quantifiable or even quality?
Yeah, so the first year we did it, we got a grant, and we worked with, there were 4 congregations that worked together, and so we did surveys. So those data are available just about HTM. And I mean, the thing to me that always struck me about when we started using HTM was how much joy it added to Hebrew.
Do you have any data about like the teens and how that's affected like utilizing teens and how that's affected your Hebrew Through Movement program at all?
So our 9th grader HTM specialist taught 2nd graders, and we only asked for feedback from 3rd grade and up. So, and then he also worked with kindergarten 1st graders. So, I would say that the other thing that will probably happen is that some of our teenagers who are working in other classes, kind of like this one student who's this one madrich who's in the preschool class, or 3- and 4-year-old class, that's a Sunday class only, that they will observe somebody else doing it, and that may be how they get interested, and that may be how they learn the vocabulary, and that may be how they get their initial preparation. So we're never one size fits all for anything. So we're just going to have to see how it goes.
I have 2 other like paid advertisements here. One is, and I think most of you know this, that we've now created on our website the HTM Shalom Ivrit program for people who want to teach Hebrew Through Movement, but don't have enough of the vocabulary. And when I used to tell people, oh, there's Rosetta Stone, you might try, whatever it was, the vocabulary would not have helped them with this and whatever. So it's there, it's free, it's linkable from the homepage. So that may be a way, even over the summer. We recommend that if people have, if all they can do is say shalom and tzedakah and maybe ma shlomech, that's not enough. They need to have a little more background. So this is there and available. And the second, Erin, I appreciate your question about the research, just a different advertisement. Roberta was part of this year. We did offer through Onward Hebrew a community of practice for educational leaders in action research. And so if you have a question that you would like to research, we were facilitated and guided by Dr. Neda Avineri. The group all agreed that she did a great job doing this to help us as practitioners figure out how to research our own practice. So that will also be offered next year, probably starting in January-ish. All right, Erin. Acharon Chaviv.
So I'm starting my 2nd year here at Or Shalom. So I will share as much as I know about the history. We've been doing it for a few years. We've been doing Onward Hebrew for a while. I'm not 100% sure when we initiated the Hebrew Through Movement into our Onward Hebrew buildup. And one of the things that started over our COVID year was when we before the summer before is when our 2 teens trained to be the Hebrew through movement like co-facilitators, along with an adult who supervises them. And the 3 of them kind of worked together as a team over the summer. They did the online training, then certification together. I found out recently only one of my teens finished. The other 2 have a little bit more to finish. So one of my teens and our adult supervisor were the 2 who hadn't quite finished all the way through yet. And so in terms of supporting them, and one of the hopes for next year is that we can help them finish that. You know, a lot of it is just, you know, reviewing the last little bit, and then like the filming of them doing it, which we can make happen here. And so part of the support has been, they had this over the year of COVID, had this adult supervisor who was the primary person writing the scripts and communicating with the teens to share the scripts and just make sure together they could do them. And edit and update them like just a little bit together, make sure all the Hebrew was being pronounced properly, things like that. And over COVID, they taught it virtually. And then last year we had to make the gear to them doing it in person. And they do this on Sundays, each class. It's supposed to be pre-K when they're here, sometimes do it, I think, but it's definitely kindergarten through 6th grade. Have, you know, 10 minutes of Hebrew through movement every week. As the year progressed, it ended up really being more like K through 4. And as due to our 5th and 6th grade curricula last year, they kind of just, they had other things and just didn't fit in their timetables quite as well anymore. So that's something we're looking at for next year. And at the beginning of the year, it was like the teacher would kind of lead and the teens would co-facilitate, holding up the things, doing the modeling, things like that. However, at certain points, we had to have them split. So, because we would have multiple classes of multiple grade levels. So the teacher would go lead in one room and the teens would go lead in another room. And as the primary like supervisor of all of our teen teaching assistants on Sundays, I would try to be around and available to supervise our teens. And then what ended up happening is we had to pull our teacher supervisor into a classroom to actually do some like I don't want to say standard classroom teaching, but to like teach a grade level. And so during the first session, it became our teens leading it by themselves without their adult supervisor there necessarily. So again, I would supervise them as much as I could, but then in our second session, the teacher would be back with them. And so there was a lot of dividing and conquering, especially depending on how many grades we had in the building at the time. We had more kids in the building in the early session, because in late session, we don't have K through 2 in the building. So that lightened up our schedule, and it was a tight fit. So they were pretty much mostly working the entire time except for during our tefillah time, which is at the end of first session, beginning of late session. So at the beginning of every Sunday, the teacher would like meet with the teens and give the script. But there were some times when the script didn't make a lot of sense and the teens would edit it themselves. At one point, we found out that some of the words weren't being pronounced correctly. So my supervisor, Rabbi Sarah Rosenbaum-Jones, and I would take a little extra time to check in with them, make sure all the Hebrew was being pronounced correctly. There were only a couple mistakes, but you know, we need them to hear it correctly for the system to be successful, right? And so as we're really thinking into the future and next year, one of the things I really want to do, and this summer, I want to have a check-in meeting, definitely with the teens, preferably with our teacher supervisor, but we're not 100% sure what her role is going to be yet next year. So that's also like, am I going to be the primary like supervisor for these teens? I don't know. We're still in flux. But I definitely want to meet with the teens to like go over, make sure we get them all fully certified and make a plan to make that happen. But also as someone who did all of the training myself years ago, I want to make sure that they're comfortable and that we can find a way to both figure out when script writing can happen, if that needs to be more us together or more them together, and when we can make that happen. And I have some thoughts about in their schedule how we can do that during our Sundays, but just got to make that plan. And just want to make sure that they, we found out like we need to step in a little bit more to help support them and figuring out what that means. But also thinking in terms of like last year, they had the option for coaching and it wasn't really taken advantage of. It was kind of hard for the teens to like connect and remember to email the person back, and email is not great with teens. And so if coaching is another option again for them next year, try to help them take advantage of this coach more actively if that's still available next year. I'm not really sure yet. It's a question I have to find the answer to. But in terms of like, these teens are going to be 11th graders this year. So hopefully they'll stay for they started when they were in 9th grade, which has been amazing. So they've been able to build their skills, build their confidence. And I'm really hoping that this year either this year or next year, I'll find some more teens interested in this avenue of being involved, so that there will be a little bit of like mentorship overlap between the teens who have been doing it for a while and some new teens. So we don't have to completely, start the wheel from scratch, whatever the phrase is from. Yes.
Thank you. Roberta.
So I would like to hear from, I think, everyone who's done this, maybe not Sarah. What's the advantage of having teams work together? What makes that work with the two of them together? Although we had this 7th grader following this 9th grader, it was a last minute type of situation where that happened. So I wouldn't say that that they were co-teachers.
Are you asking, I just want to clarify the question. You're asking about teens co-teaching this compared to teens individually teaching?
Yeah.
You're asking? Okay, thank you.
So I'm happy to start. Sorry, Stephanie. I know with these two teens, one of the reasons they were selected was a lot of because their enthusiasm, but also their willingness and ability to put in the effort to learn. And a lot of that was being able to do it in partnership. I think especially for one of them, it would have been really, really like anxiety inducing to do it by themselves. And so having that partner has been really effective, both in boosting that person's confidence, because now sometimes they do have to lead by themselves, or sometimes if the other teen is out, we pull in another teen who knows their Hebrew and can follow along a little bit, but like this teen is leading and she just has an assistant, versus when they're really co-facilitating together. It's really helped boost the confidence. And I think it also just builds nice partnerships. They're involved differently in the synagogue as well. So getting to kind of bring them together in this way has been really lovely. And we're hoping to bring the one more into youth group this year, while the other one's already in youth group. So it helps, I think, with engagement situations. And in terms of like utilizing teens together and utilizing teens in general, it's been really great for the little kids to see like, this is something I can do. This is something that will keep that like I can do in the future, that I look forward to. I see these two friends having fun together. I want to do that too. I think those are some of the avenues, at least I've definitely seen here.
Great. Thank you. Stephanie, did you have a response?
Amen to everything Erin said. Yeah, and quite honestly, we never considered it doing it any other way. I mean, just as in Hebrew Through Movement, we don't single out individual kids. We wouldn't have thought to put individual teens in that position either. They learn from and with each other, and and it really has been a nice symbiosis.
Thank you. So just want to do timing. We have just about 10 minutes left. I want to keep going, and Roberta, you may have had a comment to add. I'm going to let you do that if you wish. I want to suggest that we think about these kind of overarching questions that Roberta just offered, and to make sure that we answer short enough so we can get as many of these questions in. Roberta, did you want to comment?
I was just going to ask what the strategies were for pairing them.
From what I know, these were two kids who already had like a relationship. So it was easy to build on that one. But as I'm thinking forward, I'm also thinking about like kids who I think will work well together. In terms, not only necessarily stronger Hebrew with less strong Hebrew, but also like with these two kids, like a little bit more confidence, a little bit less confidence, but also socially who will like click well enough to build a positive professional relationship. Because I think with teens that can be really hard. It's one thing to have a friend, it's another thing to have a group partner, and you see it in group work all the time. So those are things I think about.
Yeah, we actually found that in one case where we had two kids who were like best friends together, that we ended up having to change their groups because it didn't work well. You know, that thinking about balance, thinking about putting an older student with a younger student, kind of thinking about strengths of personality versus strengths of Hebrew, all those things kind of play into it. But having friends together can be as much a distraction as a support.
I'm
Other
wondering
questions?
yeah, on like your professional full-time team. So we've talked about having a teacher supporting our teens, but how do your professional like full-time staff really support the teen teaching Hebrew through movement program? What does that look like in your organizations?
We pay them. No, I mean,
Like, is there any like supervision, or is it just checking in with the adult who is their point person? Like, how do you guys help ensure like the success of our teens as well as like of their students, I guess, is another layer of my question.
I mean, the truth is I supervise this last year, I supervised the HTM teen. He also does some teen tutoring for me. So we have fairly regular conversations, but I wouldn't have had the time to really coach him if he really needed it. And so I'm glad that we have somebody, I think somebody on the ground is a much better way of doing it.
Yeah, well, and so the teens who do Hebrew through movement for us are part of a much larger, we call it teaching assistant, but Madrachim kind of program, right? So they're the full-time staff person to whom they are most connected is the director of that program, the coordinator of that program.
So we've had this conversation because we have these different areas, song leading, Hebrew through movement, now learning differences, whatever, teen tutoring to help with support B'nai Mitzvah or sort of pre-B'nai Mitzvah students who need help with prayers. Our coordinator can't have all those areas of expertise. So actually we're trying to find other people in the system who can support them. That's just our approach.
Well, so right, well, and we have that as well, but that's sort of within the scope of the larger program, right? So there's the larger teen program as a whole, and then there's the song leading TAs who work with the cantor and the head song leader, and the Hebrew through movement TAs who work with the Hebrew through movement teacher, and so there's sort of like the supervisor and then direct supervisors, but much is the same as the way like a regular classroom TA has their teacher as their direct supervisor, right? That those other people work in that capacity. That's the way we see it.
I think about one of the things, and switching topics a little bit, there were some of you who talked about the challenge of script writing, and when the teens do it. I think Penina, somebody in the first webinar that we did on teens teaching talked about making sure that the teens wrote their scripts the week before, like part of the last part of the day was time to write the scripts, and then the next week they were ready to go. But I'm wondering if there are other things that you do to support teens as they write the scripts, get the pronunciation, whatever it is they need, that you haven't yet mentioned.
think I mentioned it, but what we do, or and I hope to add to that, is we check in with them at the beginning of the day to make sure their script for that day is ready to go and that they have all the Hebrew and that they have all their materials together. And that's usually something, and I am the one who oversees our teen programming here. So I'm usually including our like Madrigal program. So that's usually me, but we have like one of our educational staff members. And sometimes it was the teacher, but sometimes her Hebrew wasn't 100% right in the terms of the way we pronounce Hebrew here either. So it became me and sometimes my supervisor, but at the beginning of the day, just to have that last minute check-in.
I mean, the one teen that we had who took over the maternity leave, she just used the scripts that were on the website, on the Hebrew Through Movement website. So, I mean, those are good scripts, right?
They are. They go only so far. Like in the early state, like they're often segments of scripts that we offer. So things like, got to make sure you do the warm-up review. You got to introduce the new words. You got to do the integration of the old and the new. So there's some that are complete, but as you keep going with foundational units, like after foundational unit 5, maybe there are no scripts. Like there's some clues for people. So they need help. The Jewish holiday has pretty good script ideas. Prayers and blessings do not. And I keep encouraging people to get as far as the prayers and blessings. We offer ideas of what they can do, but there's not a script. So it helps so far. Okay, there's time for like one more question or whatever. Erin?
Yeah, I have a question. Do you guys scaffold your Hebrew Through Movement, like, or do your teens use one basic script for all ages? Like, and this may change depending on how long you've been doing the program, but like, what does that look like? And do you have your script writers, your teens, like scaffold for the different age groups, or are they really using one script for all age groups that maybe they'll add another word or two for older kids, or no, we're not?
So for us, it's pretty much using the same script because we get new students every year in every grade. And so that affects it. And of course, they will not have heard Hebrew or been exposed to it in the same way for 4 months over the summer. So, so far it works pretty well. And also ours are in the lower grade. So that makes a difference too.
Yeah, I do want to just also put in a plug that if kids have been doing Hebrew Through Movement this year, especially, the review usually, like people are always surprised at how much the kids know year to year. They remember over the summer. It's not weeks and weeks of review. It's like a week, maybe 2, but you should be able to get to the Rosh Hashanah curriculum, the Yom Kippur curriculum. If there's time to do all of that and then keep kids moving on. So you don't have to like, other than your initial class that's starting, you should be able to move on and then you figure out how to play it out. It is our hope that as kids keep progressing, that they're going to keep getting more sophisticated words. There's 3 levels of the holiday units. The prayer stuff can go whenever they're doing prayers. It's all there to help keep them moving. And you can figure out how that plays out if it's an all school prep, which you may need to do with teens, or if it's, each class can go as it goes. All right. I have one other quick little plug, and that is, as Erin was, and I think someone else was talking about, having your teens complete the online seminar that gains them certification, that lets them, when they go away to college, say to somebody, oh, I'm certified as a Hebrew Through Movement teacher, maybe you want to hire me. So I really encourage them to get that training so that they can have the certificate and move on that way. I learned a lot from this conversation, and I appreciate you all coming in. Sarah, I appreciate you coming 2 weeks into your job and being part of this, and to everybody else to share and to converse. And you now know each other, and if you need something, I hope you'll reach out to them. And thank you for your time for this. And we'll see how others react and add in to some of the thoughts that happen too.
So Nechama, is one of your goals to increase the number of teen HTM specialists, or to support other congregations interested in this?
Not necessarily to say, oh, we should be getting more teens in. What I keep hearing is the difficulty that people have hiring teachers.
Mhm.
And it's interesting, nobody really talked about the financial implications. Like, you're doing this because it's cheaper. A number of you have a supervisor who is going to be costly, and then they're working with the teens, whether or not you pay your teens. So, but my job is to support things. As I said last year with the summer webinar on teens as teachers, I would have said there were like maybe 2 teens out there that were doing Hebrew through movement as teachers. And then I found out that there were more. And indeed, today we learned about more. So if that's happening, and this is what people need to do in order to offer Hebrew through movement, I think we need to figure out how to be supportive of this, and that it's a different kind of population and support than adult teachers who come with the adult maturity that happens. Did that answer enough? Yeah.
I'm just thinking that maybe on the website, there should be something that says, if you're interested in that there are other schools that are using teenagers to teach HTM.
Right. Well, there is on the homepage of Hebrew Through Movement. It offers last year's webinar on teens you want to say assistants, teens as teachers, and that webinar is there front and center. And this will be added. This was a lovely conversation. This will be added to that so that people know that it's an option. And when I talk to people about the different ways to find a teacher, I am now mentioning teens and you're all the ones that are showing it's viable. And the goal of this conversation was to see how you're making it viable, the kinds of supports that you're offering, so that people just don't say, oh, I'm going to hire a teen, and then that's the end of it. But you all were very thoughtful about the kinds of supports you give teens, and that to me is part of this.
Right, but I think the other side of the conversation is that now I can't remember, Stephanie said it, or maybe it was Penina, that she had kids who were day school students. It shows them that what they learned in day school they have an opportunity to draw on that learning and to use it in a productive way. We can think of the kids at Azrui who are in Chalutzim in the Hebrew. It gives them an opportunity to use it, or for those of us who have kids in high school Hebrew, I think all those avenues are really important.
I agree, and that's worth a blog post, which either you or I will write, Roberta.
Really better. Okay.
Yeah. But I think that's what that is. When a director says, this is what I think we need to be looking at for our teams, I think that's great. It's how you keep people moving along their journey.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It goes beyond just a need for, challenges finding staff. It goes beyond that.
Right. Agree. Okay. All right. Thank you all very much. Appreciate your time, and thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nechama. Nice to see everybody. Good luck, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.